Hey everyone, Margarita here. I want to talk in this video about the remodel that was done on my parents' house for my dad to eventually come home to after his injury, and how he should have been brought home to my house, and my house should have had the remodel for numerous reasons. So I am going to do a little walkthrough here in a minute, and I'm going to walk around and show you how and why, and it's going to prove everything. Because the reason for all of this and what's gone on is due to all of my mother's ongoing crimes, her intention on finishing my dad off, making sure he did not survive or even make it home from his injuries. And another part of the reason is because she's been lying about me to everyone she knows for decades about who I am as a person, what I have going on in life. And she's been lying to everyone about my house. She's been making others believe that other people have been paying my bills, that this was my ex's house, or that my dad was paying my bills and that I couldn't afford my house. And she even lied about why I was staying at my house in Ohio for the year and a half that I was gone. And it was actually due to her crimes and her escapades during the 2021 Ford gas bill and them cutting off my hotel. And it was because of what the lies and delusions that she told them about me. So because our brains were bleeding, we didn't have a choice but to leave for that time period and allow natural precipitation to continue to clear the rest of the remnants of the gas spill. It wasn't optional. It was very serious. We were in and out of consciousness. We almost didn't survive several times. We were losing oxygen to the brain very rapidly, and I was having a very hard time even trying to get to work the little bit that I was after that had happened. And I was barely working already due to my previous injuries. So the reason that she told everybody I had initially left my home was she told everybody I couldn't afford it. Nobody was paying my bills anymore. I'm just this broke loser. I never made it in life. I never went to college, all these things. And no one was living in reality about anything that was going on because I don't have contact with any of these people. She controls 100% of the narrative with everybody she knows and everybody she's been telling her delusions to, which is hundreds, if not over 1,000 people. So now at the time of my dad's injury, I was staying at my house in Ohio during this, and I returned, I'd say 2 months, not even 2 months. It was it was probably 2 months after they signed on the paperwork to begin the work on the remodel on their house is when I returned back here. So they signed the documents to remodel their house in October of 2023. And my dad and I had been talking about him coming home with me when he was finally released for numerous reasons. He was waking up to the fact that she had been poisoning food all these years. He admitted it numerous times after his injury and before. And he started waking up to a more extreme degree and realizing what she was doing. And he even asked for a notebook so he could start documenting her odd behavior and the things she was doing. The problem is she started poisoning his food so regularly that he kept getting rushed back to the hospital, and he just stayed so unwell that he could no longer document anything. So initially, it would have made more sense because I was the one bringing him dinner every evening the first 15 months of his injury before she managed to fraudulently get me banned from ever seeing him again or being able to go there. It was me who was there every night. She was only there 1 to 3 times per week during the day, a little bit, the first several months of his injury. And she didn't start coming every day until after she managed to successfully get me permanently banned in April of 2024. So it would have made more logical sense because I'm the one who cooks dinner. I'm the one who brings it to him. It would have made a lot more sense for him to come home with me, and then he would have just ate dinner at my house where I generally cook every night. And I don't poison food. So that would have eliminated the problem. And the other reason is because my house is already set up for somebody in a wheelchair. The hallways are wide, everything is open. It would have taken minimal work, minimal money to remodel it to make it handicapped ready for him. It wouldn't have taken much. And all that would have been needed was a ramp coming up the front walkway at the front door to get into the house, which still that wouldn't have been much at all. And then my half bath on the main floor would have just needed to be remodeled. And so that way we could have squeezed a handicap shower in it and shortened the vanity, made it a little smaller and the countertop in there, and moved the toilet. And we could have expanded it by taking out my hallway closet, which we don't use. And there was numerous areas the walls could have been expanded if that was not enough space. Now, I did use their contractors who remodeled their home for this, for some of the work that needed to be done on my home. And they are public adjusters, so they hold public adjusters license. That's how I was able to get the full amount for all the damage done to my home. It just took some months, which I knew up front that that was going to be the case. They are the ones that ended up helping me. So they have seen my house. And at the time they had to come here for the inspections, I went over with them what could be a possibility if I'm able to get my mother apprehended in time. Then I could use some of the funds to potentially remodel my main floor bathroom so that he's able to come home, because it's only going to take minimal modifications to bring him here. So at the time that was all going on, when we first started talking about this, the damage to my home had not occurred yet. It was known in advance that I was only going to be gone 1 to 2 years max from my home here. So the tenant was aware of that prior to moving in. She knew that that was the maximum time frame that she had to stay here. And this was all being talked about between my dad and I about him coming here and not to his house at that time before the damage was done, which was September of 2023. And so since the documents from workers' comp to remodel their home happened about a month after that, it wouldn't have mattered, because I wouldn't have needed workers' comp to pay for anything. With the damage that did end up happening to my home, I could have easily remodeled the house without using workers' comp to do any of it. I could have just restructured how it all was and allocated the funds through different rooms differently than what I ended up doing. And it still could have been done without them being involved in it. Now, with workers' comp, they did, they did sign documents with a lien on the house, because when they pay for this to be done to anybody's home, there has to be a notarized document, because they do place a lien on the house, and you're not able to do any remodeling or sell the home for X amount of years, depending on what's agreed upon. And that's how those type of situations work. So those are the documents that were signed pertaining to my parents' house. And I'm not even sure if my mother realizes it, but I do know this because I used their contractors. So that is also how she slipped in the fraudulent quitclaim deed and the fraudulent power of attorneys that my dad then signed, and he was completely unaware that he signed. It's because she slipped him in with the documents for the remodel on their house, all on that same day. I'm sure they're dated all the same day in October of 2023. Now, if this had all been, if this had all happened prior to the damage happening to my house, if I was able to fully convince my dad and he was able to get through to my mother, and then we were able to, start making modifications for him to come here, I probably would have signed the documents, because the amount of work that would have needed to be done to my home to make it handicap ready would have been somewhere between 15 to 30 grand prior to the damage happening to my home. And I would have allowed them to do that. But then, if even if things didn't go properly, the reality is, prior to me having to leave my home due to that gas spill, I had been working on it for a year and a half, and I did all of that out of my own pocket. So it's not even all that unreasonable that I could have just fixed it out of my own pocket had the damage not had happened and we left workers' comp out of it, and I still was trying to bring him here. That could have also been a possibility at that time frame. Now, what was also going on is she was repeating so many delusions to my dad around the time my dad brought it up to her about having my house remodeled for him to come home to, because in his mind, he realized that it was more spacious and it was going to better accommodate his wheelchair and, his new condition and what would be going on. He realized that I was correct about my house being the better option. So he did bring it up with my mother, but then she started repeating so many delusions to him about how I can't afford my house and how I'm going to lose my house and how, how unstable I am. And he eventually jumped on board with her. And I know this because these delusions come out of his mouth, or whoever she's repeating the delusions to about me. All these delusions and this false narrative, it all eventually comes out of other people's mouths. So that's how I know this. So he did eventually sign the documents with workers' comp to do their house. And it's because she repeated so many delusions and just had him thinking I was so unstable and I wouldn't be keeping my home or having my home. And also during that time frame, she did have numerous individuals, two separate groups of people, actively working on trying to make sure that I would lose my income and lose my entertainment business and try to destroy it. And this had been going on for some years at this point. It had been going on for over 2 years. And she had numerous people, numerous angles doing this. Some of these people don't even know each other. And she had numerous people working at trying to make sure that I would technically like get fired from the establishment I was working at. But I don't work for them. I work for myself. So they can just ask me not to come back. So that's what these people were attempting to do. And she was also attempting to have me thrown in jail during this time and attempting to make sure I end up deceased. So all of these were being worked on by her using her corrupt group of officials who've all been helping her and everybody involved in trying to access my missing stolen trust fund. All of these people were working on this at this time as well. So she fully intended on carrying those plans out. This was also during the time Tony Baloney was pretending to date me. He was also trying to carry that out, show up at my work and cause problems and make sure that I'd like get fired or wouldn't be able to make the money that I make in order to provide for myself and pay my bills. He also didn't believe this was my real home. So this is what she was operating on and what all these people were doing for her in the background, still in her mind, believing that these people are going to carry out the agenda and I'm not going to be able to keep my home in the long run, or I'm going to be locked up or deceased because she's working all of these angles. All these people are helping her. So that's also why she went so heavy and hard with this false narrative and all these delusions at that time, just believing that this was going to be able to be carried out. So all of this was going on. Now, um, because I don't poison food, that would have been the logical option, especially if I'm running all over the place getting him food every night for dinner. Um, with the way the hallways and the house is set up, it would be, it's all open, it's all easy for him to move through, and all of my views here in my home are gorgeous views. Every window on the main floor, I'm going to walk around and show you in a minute. Every window, every view is gorgeous. So with how my parents had their house redone, it did end up costing 120 grand, and the remodel itself and what was done, in my opinion, that's not worth 120 grand. They had to put an addition on the house, they had to take out the deck, put it in a different spot. It made the property taxes go up. With my house, that wouldn't have happened because it would have just been done with what's in the house. There wouldn't have needed to be an addition. And with the views, what he would have been looking at had he ended up eventually coming home to their house would have been a blank white wall. And they did put in a window where their fireplace used to be, and it faces their next door neighbor's brick. So all he would have seen is nothing but walls till he was no longer here anymore. In my house, every window, every view, it's all gorgeous views. It's all shrubbery or scenery. They're all beautiful views. And that's, my mother's extremely jealous and envious of what I have, where I'm at in life, the house that I own, the views my dad would have had. So there's numerous reasons why she was continuing on with this escapade and these crimes, and all these police officers in the background were promising her all these charges on me, and she's calling this probation officer trying to get her to lock me up. All these people were involved in all of this. So she was dead set on he's coming home with her. He would never be coming here. And at the same time, she was also trying to access the rest of my missing stolen trust fund. And she had every intention on getting her hands on all of my dad's 401k, which at this time she thought was hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it wasn't until the 1/8/24 incident where she tried to finish him off that she realized that he doesn't have hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's under 100 grand. And that's when she tried to finish him off. So I did make a video on that a little over a year ago. You can go back and view that one. But she had all of these agendas running in the background, and why she had so much control, and why she had this like deranged, stern demeanor when she was trying to overpower each thing that was said or brought up to her. Or that's why she was acting that way, because she fully intended on carrying out all of these plans. So right now I'm going to walk around and show you the reason why she was so jealous and envious, because of the way my dad would have been living here versus going home with her. And the fact that my son and I, we live modified lives due to our injuries, which we've been suffering from for some time. So this is not new to us. We have been homebound, operating out of our home for 10 years. And we live that way. We're used to it. That's not her lifestyle. So it would have been nothing to just add him to my household and how we're already operating and living. And, she goes off and parties and does other things. But I'm going to show you, this is all open. So this is, this is all open. This is the family room. He can easily roll through here. It's all flooring. And I'm going to come to this side and show this side. But this is all open space that he can easily wheel through in a wheelchair and glide through. So I'm going to walk all the way around. This is the view out of my family room into my backyard. So if we just had the blinds open every day, it would be a gorgeous view out any window. Doesn't matter which room you're in on the main floor. But that's that view. I had to pause on the remaining part of my work. That's why the paint is not all the way finished, because it got to be winter time and I have to be able to open the windows while I'm doing that. So that's been on a pause for me, and hopefully I get to finish that next week. So here is, this is technically my dining room, my sliding glass door. So that's my backyard. Again, gorgeous views. And then same with over here, kitchen window. Now what I did here, because I had their contractor here helping me in the very beginning. He was one of the people in the beginning helping me. I brought it up with them about how I was planning on redoing the blueprints here to my kitchen, because this is not how it was set up. But I added an additional foot of space off of the edge of my counter. Should he need to come here, he can just roll his wheelchair up to the counter and it will fit right there perfectly. And then his bedroom would have been on the main floor, which would have been my chamber room, my hyperbaric oxygen chamber room. So this is a good size room. So this would have been his bedroom. And this would have been the view out of his bedroom. Another gorgeous view. And then he also would have had his own living room. So he would come straight out of the bedroom into this living room that could have been his. And out the front, I have an island. I know the leaves are all still missing, but once they grow in, you can't even see the street. And it's another gorgeous view out the front. So he could have had his own living room. And then he also, this is the bathroom we could have redone. Let me show you. So here in the bathroom, so that countertop and the vanity could have been shortened. This wall right here could have been knocked out a little bit further. I'll show you on the other side. So that wall right here, this closet could have been taken out. This could have been made into a wall, and that bathroom could have went out further to accommodate a handicap shower. There is also plenty of room up here. So if we had to bring the wall out further this way, we also could have done that. So there was numerous options to make this bathroom a handicapped bathroom to fit a handicap shower in. And this could have been the entrance to the bathroom. We could have made it so it fit perfectly. Now, I also went over that with his contractors who ended up doing their home, and he 100% agreed with everything I was showing him. And then all the way down here, this is the front door. So when you come in the front door, this would have been, this hallway is already wide enough without changing anything. It's already wide enough for a wheelchair. So the only thing that would have been needed was a wheelchair ramp coming off the front. So the front walkway right here, 2 steps, it would have just needed to come straight up and straight into the door right there. So she hid this from everybody that this could have been done very easily with minimal work, and lied to everybody. She had to hide what I have going on in here and the reality of everything, because she had spent decades telling everybody nothing but lies and delusions. So that's part of the reason all of that happened in that manner, and why she went ahead and got these documents signed and forced it upon him to just go ahead and continue the work to bring him home to her house. And with what I just showed you, that, again, that would have been 15 to 30 grand maybe spent if I used workers' comp to um, do the work versus me doing the work out of the money from the insurance claim. So if it had happened after the damage, then it would have been paid for out of the insurance claim, and it wouldn't have been a problem. So, they did spend 120 grand on their house for no reason. It never needed to be spent, and there's no views. There's nothing to look at but blank walls. Who wants to live the rest of their miserable life in a wheelchair with no view, and it was all blank walls? This was done before he turned blind, before she caused him to go blind. So he didn't go blind until 1/8 of 24. The work started on their house about 2 months prior. Um, but the reality is, all along the way, if she wasn't getting away with poisoning his food and causing all these rushes back to the hospital, that's what caused his continuous slow decline and all these rushes back to the hospital. And he was never fully recovering. And she just kept doing it again and doing it again. She did it so many times that he just never recovered. And he just kept slowly going downhill and downhill. And then once she got him all the way blind, that made it even worse. He never recovered from that day. He never got his vision back. And now he can't even talk. And so if this had been done towards, I'd say, the 6 to 8 month mark of his injury, and if Specialty Spinal Care Facility in Romulus had not released my dad into her care for that one weekend at the beginning of August 2023, because that's how he ended up with the trach tube. I warned them in advance not to ever release him with her, or that was what was going to happen, and that's exactly what happened. So I also have a police report in advance of all of this in Royal Oak, Michigan. It was made at the beginning of February 2023. So I have proof of all of this, that this was going to be the result if nobody took me seriously. And if he had been able to recover without her poisoning his batches of food, he could have been taken here. He wouldn't have ever had a trach tube. He wouldn't be blind. All of those rushes back to the hospital, all those slow declines would have never happened, because he would have been in my care, under my roof, eating my food that's not poisoned, and having a comfortable home to live in where he can easily move about throughout the home. And he would have had his own section of the home on that half of the home. He would have had his own area. We have 4 bedrooms upstairs. So, we wouldn't even need to be down here. The house has so many different areas to it that it would have never bothered him. And lately, I mean, the whole time I've been back here, it's just been me and my youngest son for the most part. My other 2 kids don't come here all that often. So it wouldn't have been, a disturbance or anything. And there would have always been somebody here on standby to help him out, whether that be my older kids come by, or it's me, or it's my youngest son, or because my dad the workers' comp would have paid for his own care team, he would have had a nurse on standby here all the time. Like, one would have had to be here on rotation, and workers' comp would have paid for it. So if he would have been able to come here prior to her causing such extensive damage to him repeatedly, he would have eventually been able to recover and have a more normalized life just in a wheelchair. And he would have lived out the rest of his life more comfortably. But because of all my mother's crimes, and because none of these agencies or people wanted to take my report seriously, and nobody investigated, nobody stopped her, every person, every agency, including the Romulus Police, Specialty Spinal Care Facility, U of M Ann Arbor, Beaumont Wayne did finally start to listen, but then he got removed from ever going there again, and it's because they started to listen to me. That's why she poisoned him there on 1/8/24. None of these people took action or tried to help me or tried to stop the problem. And my dad has 100% paid the price of all this, because she's been allowed to repeatedly poison his food and cause all these serious problems. And that's what's caused 100% of his decline. It's not something else. But because nobody did anything about it, she was able to get away with all of this. And now it's reached a point where he's never even going to get to come home, regardless of whose home he's in. He's never even going to get to come home because he's to the point where he can't even leave the care facility. But either way, I'm still banned at the care facility, and that's also due to my mother's crimes and all the delusions and all the false narrative that all these people believe about me that was never real. and them believing I stole all this money that I never stole. There is no stolen money. There is no fraudulent power of attorneys. She got her power of attorneys fraudulently signed there at Special Tree on the date the documents were signed to do the work on their house. That's how she slipped them in. She slipped in the extra quit claim deed to their house. She slipped in a medical and a financial power of attorney, and she slipped them in with the documents on putting the lien on the house so they can get the work done. That's how he didn't know anything about it. So what she did is she just manipulated everybody and passed these documents around, and nobody read them out loud on what he was actually signing, and she just got him to sign each page. He was barely with it. I showed the state of his being in the Detective Mike Ramsey video #1 from about 10 months ago. But that's how she did it. And everybody in the room agreed to help participate in these crimes. And all of these agencies and people who I've been reporting to all played a role as well, because none of this needed to happen. He could have been home here with me sometime in 2023 if she had not been repeatedly poisoning his food and getting him rushed back to the hospital, causing all these additional problems. And now it's just reached a point of no return where he's not going to come home to anyone's home. And she just intended on carrying out her long-term crimes and her long-term plans against me and stealing all of the rest of my missing stolen trust fund and stealing my dad's 401k. And she was working so many angles at one time. That's why she was so forceful with her words and what she was telling people and how she was orchestrating and manipulating all of this. That's why she was talking like that. So that's a serious issue. If there's nothing we can do about it now, because you can't reverse time, you can't find lost time. It's never found. And he's not going to be able to get his health back because of how long this went on for and the degree injured that he is without anybody ever stepping in. Now, if somebody had taken action on any of my reports back in 2023, he could have been back here a long time ago. At no time could I ever not afford my home. I've been planning on keeping this home long term from the time that I bought it in 2017. The only problems that have gone on were 100% caused by my mother's crimes and escapades. And all that should have happened is more homes should have been added to my portfolio along the way. Regardless, this home was already supposed to be an Airbnb in 2022 to 2023. And if my dad had taken my offer on working with me back then when I was ready to get him to retire, I could have paid him what his work was paying him. But because he brought that information back to my mother and she repeated so many more delusions to him, he thought it was all a joke and I'm just so dumb and I don't know what I'm talking about. And a couple months later, he ended up walking off the scissor lift and becoming permanently injured. So this home should have been producing money back a while back, and there should have never been any damage. And I should already own 1 to 2 other homes after this, and my house in Ohio should not exist. So that was all orchestrated by my mother and all her criminal escapades and everything that's gone on. Regardless, it doesn't matter. I was planning on owning this home long term. No matter if I'm living in it or I'm living in one of the other homes that I own, it doesn't matter. It's not up to somebody else to tell me where I can live and how many homes I own and which one I can live in. It's nobody's business. So this could have worked out, and it should have went, as planned, with him coming home with me. So he could have physically been kept safe. His food would have been kept safe. He wouldn't have all these additional rushes back to the hospital, all these other injuries and all this repeated sepsis. None of that would have ever been going on if somebody had taken any of my reports seriously. But because nobody's done their job, this is the result of all of this. And I've been banned from my dad for the past 2 years because everybody at the care facility believes all the lies and delusions about me. So, I did make the house, tried to accommodate potentially him coming home because, this was a couple of years ago I started working on my house. So when I did all this, I did that with the intention of, in case I absolutely had to bring him here, because I didn't know how this was going to play out. I didn't know if arrests were going to be made or when arrests were going to be made. Now I do know arrests are going to be made. I just don't know when. But 2 years ago, I didn't really have a time frame. So I did all this and put the house back together like this. So in case I had to bring him here, I could. It's still accommodatable. He just wouldn't be able to have a shower here. He'd have to have a bed bath. But with where it is now, I don't foresee him ever being able to leave the care facility. But at this point, the care facility is extremely liable for everything that's gone on because I made all of these reports in advance. And we also have Charmaine, who's been documenting all of my mother's crimes and an update on my dad every week. And she's been documenting for over 6 years now. So she has all of this as well. There's more than enough proof to make arrests and prove what has gone on and who's all been involved. But the point is, she was extremely jealous and envious of what I have, the house I have, trying to make sure I lose it, trying to make sure I lose my life, um, trying to make sure everybody believes her entire false narrative, which was grown over the course of decades. And those people all continued to believe all that. And that was what was behind all this. That's why she couldn't let anybody know that he should have been moved to my home a long time ago, and it was already wheelchair ready, and it only needed minimal work, minimal accommodations for him to come here. And she just couldn't tell anybody that. And she was so jealous of the gorgeous views I have out of every window that she doesn't have any of that. And she was planning on putting my dad in a room that has nothing but 4 white walls and a window staring at some brick. But that's what's at the root of everything, and that's why it's played out the way it has. So I'm going to come back and do another one, talk about it a little bit more. Thanks. Bye.